With us on the line is Rebeca Grynspan. UNDP.org is the website. That's the UN Development Program. She's the #2 official there, the former vice president of Costa Rica, and the Under Secretary-General for UN Development, the UN Development Program. Do I have all that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. First of all, just a quick question, if I may, about Costa Rica.
Yes.
Is that if that's okay with you? I'm just terribly curious. I've never been there. One of my kids has. Does Costa Rica have a national health insurance program?
Oh, yes, it does.
How does it work?
Well, everybody pays, in the formal sector.
Uh-huh.
Everybody pays in the salary bill for the health insurance and for the pensions.
Okay, so it's taken out of your tax money, like we do with Social Security or Medicare.
Yes,
but those people who are unemployed or who are living in poverty, they have access to the healthcare system too?
Yes, Costa Rica's coverage is 95% of the population.
Wow. I honor your country. Okay, and I guess that's, in a way, perhaps an appropriate setup for the UN Development Program. What are the focuses of, when you say development, what do you mean? And what are the focuses of what the United Nations is doing around the world?
Thank you very much. Well, it's difficult. Development is difficult to define, but let me give you just like 2 words to try to define it. One is that we try to empower people to make it happen for themselves. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our work is also working with the partners, with the communities, with the people themselves. Mm-hmm. So we can make them aware of their rights. We can organize with them in terms of a dialogue with the government that will be meaningful, that will give them voice in terms of the affairs that affect their lives. Mm-hmm. The second thing that we try to do is to build up the capacity of the countries for them to be resilient in terms of the shocks that come from the outside world, or even from climate change or the financial crisis or the economic crisis, so they don't lose the gains in human development that they have achieved with the effort of everybody. So these 2 things are very core to UNDP.
Isn't part of that resiliency, that social resiliency, things like the social safety net, things like, for example, the country that you were the vice president of, Costa Rica, having a national health care system? That's the kind of stuff that people fall back on when that economic shock hits them.
Yes, the social protection issue is a key issue. We have all the studies show that, for example, for the achievement of the reduction of poverty, for maternal and child mortality to come down, etc., it's very important to have a social protection system. It is different in each country. We don't pretend to have a one-size-fits-all type of solution, but what we try to build with the countries is the social protection system that will really take care of the most vulnerable precisely in those situations. Health is one of them, but it's also income in the rural areas. It's not only access to health, but it's also the income that will allow them to have access to food and access to education. So it's a basic set, a basic package that every human being in the world should be able to get in all situations.
I don't want to drag you into American politics. I know that that's not your business. But everything you're describing is everything that the Republican Party today is opposed to in this country, which makes a lot of us crazy because it seems like the idea of a social safety net, of whether it's health care, income, housing, food, these basic essentials, what Abraham Maslow, the famous psychologist, described as, the essential human needs, the foundational human needs, that they really should be part of the function of the larger society and community, that thing that we call government. And I'm wondering how this is working out as you travel around the world and you talk to countries about developing and strengthening their social safety nets. And is there any chance the UN could come to the United States and help us?
I won't answer that.
Okay, I understand. You're a diplomat, and I respect that.
But I think that maybe what I can bring that is important is that one of the things that we do is that we really try, at least in the developing countries, to be able to bring the best practices and the good examples to the floor, so countries can tailor whatever they want to do as a policy for their countries in the benefit of their people. So,
but there's been a very strong evangelism on the other side for a number of years. The Chicago School of Economics, the Milton Friedman School, the von Mises School, the Paul Wolfowitz School, if you will. Milton Friedman went down to Chile and advised Pinochet back in the day on how to rip apart the social safety net, how to privatize Social Security, how to throw everything to the so-called free market, thinking that would save everything. And they did the same thing after the Soviet Union broke up with many of the former Soviet states, basically saying you don't need any social safety net. If you just completely empower the millionaires, billionaires, and big corporations, everything will be fine and happy, and individual philanthropists will step up and fill the gap. It doesn't seem to have worked out all that well. How do you respond to that? Those counter evangelists to the evangelism that you're doing?
Well, I think that the important thing to do is there are false dichotomies that we have to overcome. This dichotomy between the state and the private sector is a false one. Mm-hmm. Most of our countries in the developing world will need a better state and a better functioning private sector. You don't have to choose between them because you cannot do without one of them. We need really a private sector that will be creative, that will create jobs, that will be dynamic. But at the same time, that doesn't happen without the regulating frameworks, without the right policies. And the other part of it is that the state has to really care for the vulnerable, for the ones that don't have a voice, for the ones that are not equipped to participate fully in the opportunities that are arising. So to have an inclusive growth, you need the policies and the intervention of the state to give access to the most vulnerable, and for those that don't have the voice to make it alone.
Yeah. Now, when we did our show from southern Sudan a year or so ago, and on the border with Darfur, near the Darfur border, and there was the UN had brought in an enormous amount of food. This little community that we were broadcasting from, 500 miles from the nearest road or electricity, called Gok Machar, had a dirt airstrip, and there were these large kind of tent, things that were filled with food that. My recollection is it was the UNDP, the UN Development Program. Am I misremembering that? Was it another UN program that brings food into refugee areas? Or do you do that as well?
It's the World Food Program.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that was a different part of the UN.
Yeah, but the UN tries to really work together because the synergies between the different agencies are very, very big.
Yes. Yeah. So to the extent that you are traveling the world and encouraging nations to build strong social safety nets so that they can weather the shocks, be they global climate change shocks or economic shocks or war or whatever it may be. To the extent that you're doing that, what tools do you use? In other words, do you go in and actually build things? Do you offer templates? Do you offer instruction to government? Do you do any kind of advocacy to the people of the countries who in many countries are driving government policies and other countries have very little to do with it? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, very, very important, your question. First of all, we have offices in 129 countries around the world. So the first thing that we do is to have a conversation with the people of the country. And for that, we do four things. One is one that you have mentioned, the advocacy part of it, the awareness in terms of the problems, the social dialogue with all the stakeholders. The second thing is that we help and support the government for policy design. Third, for implementation of the policy. And fourth, for the preparedness, for the resilience part of it. So sometimes we build, sometimes we give policy advice. Sometimes what we really nurture is the social dialogue
and awareness.
finding the right answers to the problems that people are feeling.
And you know, it's fairly well known, I suppose, the successes, I would call them failures, the disasters that were brought about, but the successes of the Chicago School after the fall of the Soviet Union back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s in South and Central America. To what extent, in the minute we have left here, Under Secretary-General Rebeca Grynspan, to what extent are you having successes around the world?
Oh, yes, we are having successes, but that doesn't mean that it's in all accounts. The successes in the advancement of the development millennium goals are very great. You know, children are having much more access to education. Women and girls are being centerpiece of development programs now, and they were not before.
Marvelous.
Maternal health is getting better, although maternal mortality is still a huge challenge. There are huge advances in HIV, for example, in access to universal treatment. So there are a lot of good examples around the world in which we can build on. And there are practical good experiences that we can bring from one part to the other part of the world.
Absolutely marvelous. Under Secretary-General Rebeca Grynspan of the UN Development Program, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your program.